Hi, I'm Carl Hansen, and welcome to another edition of Behind the Lens, the podcast series where we go behind the camera and find the stories from the people who have worked in the film and television industry and what it has been like for them. I have the great privilege and honor to be speaking to a very dear friend of mine today, who I'm going to bring to the stage here, Mr. Joe Glass from great state of Arkansas. How are you, Joe? Great to see you.
Good fine today, Carl. How about you?
I'm doing all right. It's been a long time since we've actually seen each other. So, quick history, at least between Joe and I. So, on September 11th, 2001, I was in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, with this fine gentleman here. And when the planes hit the World Trade Center, we watched it live from this Airbnb that he had set up for me. I was a location manager on a CBS reality show that was called The Farm at the time. And Joe was the film commissioner of Arkansas and was kind enough to be giving me a personalized tour. You were touring me around. I mean, we should just briefly, at least that's our origin story, right? And then I want to delve into your history and how you kind of ended up there. But that is a day that's, I mean, obviously forever ingrained in a lot of people, but specifically for me, tied to you. And you were so kind and giving, and I was so far away from friends and family, and I didn't know anybody else there. You were really my only point of contact, and it was really obviously forged a lifelong friendship that we've spoken every year on September 11th, I think since then, right? It's been 23 years now. And anyway, so how are you? How are things with you?
I'm doing great, Carl. It's a lovely day here in Hillcrest section of Little Rock, Arkansas, and things are happening. It's pleasant. It's always good to talk to you too, bud.
Absolutely. So we'll probably come back to the September 11th piece in a little bit. Because obviously that was really what forged our connection and friendship over the years. But as I've gotten to know you, as I've spoken to you, and had many a conversation, I wanted to kind of get a little bit more information and share it with people who are really interested in this aspect of the business, because it's also something a film commissioner may not people may not know exactly what that role is. Right. But I'd like to quickly start, at least from the beginning. For you, I know you said you were born in Fort Benning, Georgia. I had done a show there, not obviously many years after you were born, but I'd spent some time there, so I'm familiar with that space. But so were your family in the military? Is that why you were there?
Yes, my dad was a master sergeant in the Army, and he ran medical labs. He went from the Army running medical labs to running VA hospitals. Kind of a troubleshooter guy that went to the least underperforming VA hospital, turned him around, and then they bring in a caretaker and send him to the next tough spot that needed cleaning up. So Dad always walked into a hospital and started with the janitors and the people that did the work first, got to know them on a first name basis before he ever went into the head honcho's office. So it was a good experience learning that, because the movie business is the same way. If it's those little people along the way that make up the team and then you find out that you just thought they were little people. There are no little people on a film crew. Everybody's job is real important.
Absolutely. So how did you get started? What was it that brought you into the film business?
Well, when I was 11 years old, Carl, my dad was an early adapter. He bought a little Bolex, 8mm movie camera. You hand wound it up and everything. And film was real expensive. I mean, $3 a roll, I think, and then another maybe $5 to get it processed, which was really a lot of money back in the early 50s. So Dad would shoot these films at family gatherings, and he'd be in such a hurry to make sure everybody got in it that it was all kind of just a swish pan. And when you got to watch it, everybody, that was me. And then finally he tired of it, and he said, would you like to try it? So I did. Well, the one thing I thought I needed to do was, even if I didn't get everybody, what I got of anybody was going to be a good take on them. So immediately, the family starts praising me and my filmmaking skills because I held the camera on them long enough that they could find themselves. So that perked my interest that maybe I had talent or something. What a delusion. Didn't really think about it too much, but high school, I was in the projectors club, which got you out of class so you could go rent a projector for another class, and you get to watch all these documentaries and things they showed, which I thought was all very fascinating.
And where was this? Where did you go to high school?
Well, I started off at North Fulton High School in Atlanta, and then my dad got transferred to Huntington, West Virginia, where on the Marshall University is there. It was Marshall College in the day, but Marshall is there, and it was a teacher's school. So they had on the campus a lab school where all the teachers that were graduating got to go and see excellent teachers teach and be assistants. So in a limited classroom of 25 people, and you had 4 or 5 graduate college students sitting there just dying to help, it was a blessing to be able to go to school there. And some of my earliest and best memories of learning things were those high school teachers like Lyle Lovett and Lyle V. Douthit and Dora Mae Mitchell, the English teacher. She was awesome. Dr. Miriam P. Galvin. So they kind of encouraged the creative side and stuff. I sang in the choirs and glee clubs and all that kind of stuff. But it all really translated to when my dad got transferred from Huntington, West Virginia out to San Francisco. We lived in an apartment complex called Stonestown, which was next to the Stonestown Mall, but also adjacent to a school I'd never heard of, San Francisco State. And I literally discovered it by walking into it. I didn't know it was there, but oh, looky here, there's a university right next door. Next thing you know, I'm walking around campus. There's this magnificent building that says radio, television, film. And I thought to myself, oh my God, you can study this in college? I'm in. And I went in. It was, went in immediately and never left. Intro to radio, TV, film 101. Just ate it up. The business, they used to say, Carl, they say, the information age is coming. By the year 2000, over 80% of the new jobs created will be in the information business. You'll either be creating the information, you'll be storing and retrieving the information, or you'll be distributing the information. I thought, well, that makes it pretty simple that you ought to be able to find a place to get into that. So naturally, upon graduation, I got a chance to go to work for IBM. They were the leaders in content storage and creation, and got to go through all of that at the same time, watching people buy their first TVs and then deciding they don't need color because it's too expensive. And, we went through the whole progression of watching the communications business grow. And look where we are now, bud. Here we are talking over the telephone.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. The information, it's still all about information and how that gets passed around. So you sort of found, a career, at least in the information age, right?
Yeah.
Doing that. So then how did you kind of get back into sort of the film part?
Well, it was interesting. IBM had this new division. It was called the Information Records Division. Isn't that appropriate? Information records. I mean, they were starting with punch cards and then going to tape and then to disk and then RAM, random access memory. You don't have to start and wind up from A all the way to Z to get to P. You could just go in, beep, right into P. So it was a great education, but a few years of that, and I thought, I really, I was living in LA, and I remembered my time that IBM had me in Arkansas and the unique topography around here. I mean, literally, Little Rock is the capital and then center of the state. To the east, you've got flat prairie land and rice paddies. Uh, and to the north, you've got rolling hills with hardwoods. To the south, you've got the rolling hills and pine. And to the west are the only mountains between the Appalachians and the Rockies. So within a 50-mile circle of Little Rock, you could look like you were in a whole bunch of places. And the state motto at the time was Land of Opportunity. My IBM days here, I got to sit with Don Tyson and Sam Walton and Jack and Whit Stevens and largest investment banking house west of the Mississippi, Win Rockefeller, who had moved down here and was investing, who funded out of his own pocket what became the Economic Development Commission, of which the Film Commission was a part of. So I was hip to all of that coming through Win Rockefeller.
So because of your IBM connection, so you were in Los Angeles, working, living here, where I am.
I was working in. I was selling. I had left IBM to work for a little startup company called Kalis Memories, which was a bunch of IBMers who left because they were the guys who developed the 6 and 12 high disc packs, which were the latest state of the art store and retrieve tool. And I sold a bunch of them to Holiday Inn because they had a huge reservation system. So they wondered how I did that. And so they promoted me to LA, where there was all the aerospace companies. Well, I sold out all the aerospace companies. And then, there you go, and start thinking, I don't want to spend the rest of my life in computer rooms in a white shirt and a sincere tie with a dark suit. I'm just, what about the film thing? I had a degree in radio, TV, film now, and so I was interested in exploiting that, and it seemed like Arkansas was the land of opportunity. I had all these great contacts from IBM because, boy, when I was here at IBM, big companies had computers, and the guys who ran those big companies were very interested in what the computer business was doing. So I got to make presentations to all the big boys and everything. And of course, when I moved back, I found out that while Joe Glass, IBM, got me in a lot of places, Joe Glass, I want to be a film producer, not so much. But enough that after a couple of tries, the state did decide to do a film commission, and I helped get it done with a whole bunch of other folks, and had no intention of taking the job myself. But once it got passed, all these filmmaker hippie buddies of mine turned around and said, well, Joe, you're the one who worked for IBM. You were in the military. You need to do this. They've only approved it for 2 years, and then they're going to take it back. All right, I'll do it for 2 years. Well, there you go.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, but just
Sure.
some clarification. So what prompted the state of Arkansas to want to open this thing? You said the Rockefeller money to do the economic development. What was the purpose of that?
Well, he saw the opportunity here in Arkansas, and knew they needed some more big thinking brain power. I think that's the way he would put it, because he always told me, just when you think you're thinking big, think bigger. That was one of his things. He also told me, he said, Joe, you're going to have a hard time getting big things done here, as I have a hard time. He said, but you can get some things done. And one of the things you have to realize is that you're not from here. He said, but neither was I. And the big difference is, Joe, is I've got a whole lot of money. And, which God bless him, he and his son, Win Paul, were both great promoters of Arkansas, and made you think, well, when Arkansas gets behind something, look what you can do. Who would have thought back then, in those days, in the 70s, if I told you that, hey, by the year 2000, especially by 2024, that 2 of the largest 5 retailing companies in the world would be out of Arkansas, Walmart and Dillard's. Who would have thought that the #1 protein producer, chickens, pork, beef, would be Arkansas, Tyson. Who would have thought the largest trucking company, J.B. Hunt? I mean, it was just thing after thing after thing, and a lot of it tied back to Jack and Whit Stevens, who had the largest investment banking house outside of New York City. And they're still very powerful and very prominent. Mr. Whit and Mr. Jack are long gone, but, you know, having access and help from those guys was, especially Mr. Whit, he was a special guy to me. And I couldn't help being able to answer my friends and said, why don't you come back to LA if you want to be in the film business? And I could tell them, I'm sitting here, Winthrop Rockefeller lets me pick up the tab with these buddies here. This guy that's doing this retail thing, Sam Walton, I think his name is, and you know, on and on. And Don Tyson, he's a big chicken farmer. Well, that didn't sound especially glamorous, but what the heck? And they were all great guys. I mean, you could talk to them, and I thought, I go back to California. I'm lost in the crowds, but here, I guess a lot credit to IBM that I got some high level intros and delivered for them. So when I came back with the film deal, it was different, but I still had some credibility, enough that they let me represent them, you know, as the film commission. Everybody would call and want to speak to somebody on the staff or one of the film commissioners. Well, there was only me, so I had to cover all of
one man film commission.
Well, with a smile on the face, you certainly didn't want to tell them that. You know, you didn't want that to get out. So if they asked for somebody at the film commission to be at a film festival or to speak at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon, someone from the film commission always had to show up, whether it was Saturday, Sunday, or whatever. But it was a treat and a joy to represent a whole stinking state. That was great. I knew what we had. I knew my product was good, like I knew when I was working for IBM. I knew my product was well. Now go sell it. Yeah.
So when did that start for you? When did that get past the economic development piece and the office opening?
That started in 79, August of 1979. They that, like I said, was funded for 2 years. I mean, it was a toss-up between the Parks and Tourism people and the Economic Development people as to who got the film office. Well, Economic people won. They weren't exactly prepared for me, but I got there, and with much ado and fanfare, etc., they had the very kind gentleman who was the janitor and whose mop closet was large. They put a divider in his mop closet and gave me the front end of it.
Legitimately, this was your first office, was sharing that closet.
And he was such a nice guy and understood, and he would be real. I didn't have many people drop by. People don't drop by the film office. It was a phone business mostly. But anyway, we worked it out. It was a great experience working with him. And it kept everybody humble that I wasn't a big shot. I wasn't trying to be a big shot. I was just a worker bee. And that helped. Thank you again, Dad. You know, I knew to make, you know, when the janitor and I got good to be friends and he told everybody I was an okay guy, that helped everything. You know, it helped debunk any thought about, oh, Mr. Hollywood, any of that crap. So it was very helpful, you know. Very fortunate and good people. God bless them. Such good people. The first boss was a guy named Charles Jolliffe. Real tall.
So they start the Economic Development Commission, right? They then approve this film office.
They started the commission years before. They just opened the film office in 79 when the legislature finally passed it. The legislature had denied it twice before. But they meet every 2 years, and in 79, in January, February of 79, they passed the bill authorizing an office, the film commission. Except then people balked that we couldn't call it a film commission because there wasn't one. But we had this study from the industry that said, well, y'all can name it anything you want to, but we're going to call it the Film Commission because that's what we do, and you can call it whatever you want to. So they asked me what to call it afterward. Instead of the Film Commission, I went, well, we'd like to be knowing this computer business and how this content expansion distribution is going to grow. I asked that we be named the Office of Motion Picture Development. Any pictures that moved fall into our group. So I could claim as big an umbrella as possible. Nobody objected to the OMPD, Motion Picture Development, and that's what it was. And again, the industry, they call you the film commissioner, no matter, they didn't want to talk to the director of the Office of the Motion Picture Development.
Right. It was the industry parlance, right? So you call it state film commission when you want something to be done in that state. So Arkansas did not have this. The legislature, after failing to pass this twice, obviously there's a lot of politicking and things that go into getting that done. But with the purpose of what? Was it to bring film jobs, to help the local economy? Like, really, what was the purpose of opening that film office?
Well, the way we sold it, we had and still have a very strong tourism business. And what we equated it to that rung the bell with everybody and got us a lot of support was, look, these guys are like a big convention that comes to town, except instead of just for the weekend, they'll be here for weeks and weeks, spending like a big convention. And then the good news is they'll leave. We don't have to build roads or take their kids to school or anything. They're just like a big, well-funded convention. And then they leave, and we're not getting our fair share. We're not getting any. So they said, well, why not? Let's see what we can do. Well, as luck would have it, first film up, Carl, was Crisis at Central High, and they were going to shoot it in L.A., and then they were going to do an exterior in Dallas. And they were going to make this movie about Central High, and everybody says, "Oh no, that's what we thought. This is awful. They're making movies about this black eye period for Arkansas." And I said, "What you don't understand is they're going to make it or not. I'd like to try and get at least the exteriors here. Central High is the largest building in our state. It's a nationally known institution." And it's the name of the movie's Crisis at Central High. It's a character. So the highway department fixed me up with these giant desk-size, huge aerial prints of Central High. And I flew out to L.A., met with the head of Time Life Production, whose name will come to me in a minute, and naturally, very sweet lady. But I asked her if I could come out, and she said yes. And she was in charge of like $130 million a year in production for Time Life.
How did you know about that movie?
Oh, we read in the trades.
Okay, so you got information learning from the trades that this movie existed.
Yeah, it's going to be made. They've got Joanne Woodward. I mean, who doesn't love her to pieces? So they've got it was a top-notch production, but they were going to basically do it in L.A. and maybe some exteriors in Dallas. Well, when I showed her the whole thing, Lamont Johnson was going to direct. I mean, there you go, big name TV guy. What a gentleman too. They came in, and I pointed out some things to Lamont that I thought were not in the script and everything. For instance, one of the big national photos was of all the cars parked where the riots were taking place. And I pointed out to him, I said, look at these photos here. Look at the license plate on all these cars, Lamont. They're not any of them from Arkansas. He said, ooh, good point. And he said, you got any other tidbits? I said, well, yeah, the famous picture that ran in the New York Times of the student lighting fire to the hanging in effigy. He said, oh, yeah. I said, would you like to talk to that student? Because he'd like to tell you how the New York Times reporter brought the effigy, the body and effigy, with the rope and paid the kid to put it up in the tree. He said, yeah, you're kidding. I said, no. I said, that wasn't our kids. Who's going to turn down $50 if you say, hey, go throw this rope over that tree and hang that thing? Oh, anyway, it was tidbit after tidbit after tidbit. And Joanne Woodward could not have been more gracious, and that as just could not have been more gracious. So we had a good experience.
I just want to get, so you flew out to LA, you convinced them with these plans from the highway department?
Yes. Pictures.
And what else? I mean, what else do you offer in that instance, right? It's like, hey, I know you were going to go here, but here, what's that sales pitch?
Well, it looks like, take a look at this building. Look at the size of this sucker.
Because it actually took place, the story took place in Arkansas. Is that true? That's
where the true story was.
I'm not familiar with the film. That's why for me, it's like, okay. So it was an Arkansas story and you went after it.
About when when the governor had the National Guard preventing the school from integrating, and Eisenhower sent in the federal troops to negotiate the integration of Central High. Big perceived as negative story here for decades, but now is honored because of the Little Rock Nine. There's statues of those folks, and Central High is still a high functioning quality school. Winthrop Paul Rockefeller, who my kids went to middle school with and everything, he and I would be working on the playground together, planting a tree or something for shade or something. And Wynn would say, Joe, our kids are so lucky to have this wonderful natural upbringing. My kids could go anywhere in the world to school, but I like them being right here. And I'm glad your kids are here too. And I always thought, geez, here he is, sleeves rolled up, rolling around in the dirt with me and stuff, and talking about what a good spot our kids were in. It was it's very, very, very touching and heartwarming. And he was also lieutenant governor for a while the film office was going. And when I had folks in from LA who liked to smoke cigarettes, and there wasn't anywhere for them to smoke, he could go to Wynn Paul's office, the lieutenant governor, and step out on his balcony where he would love to entertain people and smoke cigarettes with guys, which made him very handy resource if you had a cigarette smoker on hand that felt, what am I going to do? Well, we could take him over and let him play with Wynn, and Wynn make sure he was taken care of. It was just great stuff. Yeah, just
different time. That's obviously not that's not what people are doing today.
I imagine you can still step out on the balcony,
Right.
But you're right.
But that's amazing. So you were part of the start of the film commission. You convinced this movie to come there. So now this is success. Is that sort of like, oh great, like we've done it, or no? What do you now have to continue to do?
That was oh no, I told you so. This is horrible. What other nightmare do you have fixed up for us? Well,
so the state didn't like it, or what was the?
Well, they didn't like the idea that the movie was made. Period.
Because it was controversial. I gotcha.
But they did like the idea of Joanne Woodward being around and the money. That got some people's attention. So the next thing was they were saying, well, that's good. That's Little Rock. They're all liberal there. They'll go for it. But Northwest Arkansas, our conservative corner of the state, they're not going to have any of this stuff. So don't think you're going to take this elsewhere. Well, right in that same period, there was a fellow that went to a wedding in Fort Smith. His name was Lou, L-O-U, Reda, R-E-D-A, from Pennsylvania, Scranton, I believe. And Lou was the agent for a guy named Bruce Catton. Bruce Catton was the guy who wrote a book called The Blue and the Gray. And CBS, he was going to pitch this thing, according to the newspaper article, that this wedding he was attending, he was the agent, and they were pitching it to make a movie. So I tracked him down at his office, and he said, yeah, he's trying to do a TV deal. And I said, well, I'd love to land that thing. Anything I can do to help? He said, well, get me all the historically correct buildings, anything you think that might be helpful. And I'll keep you posted as we go along. So I would go and
So wait, so how did you get connected to him? What was the?
I hunted. He was in the newspaper attending a wedding in Fort Smith, which is just up the road on the Oklahoma border.
So you got a meeting with him while he was still in town?
No. Oh, no. It took me a while to chase him down.
You chased him down based on that news. Okay, got it.
Based on seeing his name in that article and who he was and representing what he wanted to do. So,
so this is for you. You're reading the trades. You're reading the newspapers. Like you're staying current on whatever's happening in the day.
Everything, watching everything.
There's no internet. That doesn't exist, right? It's you're getting like the Hollywood Reporter or Variety or the newspapers, actual paper, right?
Yes, 2 days late. It had to come by mail. There wasn't any way to look at it online or anything. You had to get it in, but then, and they would come not every day, but every few days I'd get a batch of 2 or 3 of them or something, and so you had to pour through it. But Lou Rita was, he was determined to do the thing. And so I got on that early, and with the help of a fellow by the name of Dr. Cyrus Sutherland up at the University of Arkansas, he knew all of the period homes and the people who owned them. And with his help and introductions, I got around in that little Volkswagen I sent you a picture of. And nobody was paying expenses. I paid my own expenses and stuff. So I'm sleeping in it, I'm driving it around, and we go and visit all these places. I get in thanks to Sutherland's intro. Otherwise, I'd have never got into these historic places, much less them take me seriously about we're looking to shoot a TV series. Many series were still big then, and this was going to be 9 hours. So I was working on it hard. It worked, and he got his deal with CBS, and he got his deal with Columbia, and I had plenty of time. So the best of what Arkansas had to offer, he had, and they liked it because
with your assistance, right? You're saying you kind of were the key to opening those doors.
Dr. Sutherland was the key to opening them, but he was opening so I could go in and be introduced.
So how did you know that about this doctor?
Research again. Call up university sitting in the middle up there. Who up there knows something about the historic buildings? Well, we've got a guy that specializes in that. Everybody loves him. Maybe he'll help you. So I cold called Dr. Sutherland. I tell him what I'm doing. He said, "Well, that's fascinating." He said, "It'll help Arkansas." I said, "Oh, if we plan this thing, it'll bring some money in." So sure enough, we worked on that. And it got down. They looked at pictures, and our main competition was Phyllis George and John Y. Brown up in Kentucky. And they were telling, when the crew came for the inspection tour, they had the governor's helicopter, and we didn't have a helicopter. So I said, "Damn, he got a helicopter and all that." And then I started thinking, there's got to be 17 or 18 of them. They don't have a helicopter. What are they going to do with the other people that aren't in the helicopter? Well, it turned out they were putting them on a bus to follow the helicopter around and show them all these neat locations. But they apparently all their neat locations weren't near a good place to stay. So they had proposed building a tent city with boardwalks for the crew. Now, this is the crew that's been ridden around in the bus, going to be ridden around in the bus and everything. I explained our situation to a fellow named Preston Bynum. He was Governor Frank White's chief of staff one Friday afternoon late. And he said, "Well, what
are you trying to solve this problem? Or you were like, this is
it was addressing the situation more.
Okay.
I was just trying to address a lot of this about their helicopter. I didn't know at the time. I just knew that they were our competition. They filled in the blank as it went along, but I knew trying to take care of our end of the deal. They said, "Well, hell, half of them didn't know where Arkansas was, much less how to get here. And the only way you could get here in those days was to go through Dallas. And so I told him that, and they said they're worried about how to get out of Northwest Arkansas. That was before there was an airport up there that Miss Alice Walton put in. That was before there was an airport there to get them. So it was all edgy, and they were just thinking, well, Arkansas too far in the boonies, and what kind of help are we going to get there? So I explained all this. He said, how many people do you have? I said, I don't know. I think it's under 20, but 17, 18, I think, something like that. Executives from CBS and Columbia, producers, art department, director, et cetera, et cetera. And he says, okay, so what if we do this? He said, what if when they fly into Dallas, we pull up with our plane beside them and fly them directly up here, tour them around, and then we'll fly them to Kentucky, so they don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I said, well, we can do that. He said, just a minute. He spun around in his desk chair. He goes, click, click, click. He said, okay, we got that covered for you. So next thing here, a week or two later, the plane flies from Dallas into Fort Smith is where they flew in. And the plane lands, a nice private jet, and these guys all come piling out of the jet. And they've all got on their caps. It's Hudson Farms. And everybody stands around for the obligatory press pictures. They're all lined up and everything. And finally, one of the producers leans over and he says, so, Joe, what do they grow at Hudson Farms? I said, oh, like chickens. He said, chickens? He said, yeah, chickens. He said, golly, that must be the biggest chicken farmer around. I said, oh, no, that'd be Mr. Tyson. You'll meet him later. So in they loaded. We didn't have any limos to pick them up in, but Floyd Bohannon and Lee Zachary were there, and they had two pallbearers, stretched cars, white Chryslers with blue vinyl tops, one who actually had a muffler half dragging that was tucked up and stuff, but everybody loved them. Everybody, they were so sweet. They were so kind and so.
Wait, there were funeral limos? Is that what you're saying?
Instead of limos, they were stretched pallbearer cars. You know, do you know what a pallbearer car is with the rows of seats instead of limo setup?
Yeah.
Just rows of seats that carry a lot of pallbearers. That was the best we could do for limousine. But they loved it. They thought that was clever. They carried all of them. It only took 3 of them to carry all 18 of them. I think they fit like 6 apiece in the limos. And meanwhile, they're following me in my little blue Volkswagen around so everybody know where to go. In the film commission car. Carl, then later on at the big dinner when they were deciding, and the governor's office people were all there to formalize the deal with everybody. They got the deal and said, we're looking forward to your help here is just outstanding. One of our judges, one big concern was that nobody would rent a bulldozer. The county judge says, I've got several of them. Most of the time they just sit around. You can use them anytime you need. We can leave one out on your set. It'll be helpful. Golly, really? Yeah. What are you going to call it? Charge for that? Oh, nothing. We're just glad to help you boys out. So they were having a good time. They were having a good time with all the good social presence of people helping and stuff. And it made all the difference in the world. It made all the difference in the world. And when they were here for, I don't know, maybe the better part of 9 months, dropped right at 20 million, not including the multiplier factor or what the crew spent or anything. And in return, the hotel in Fayetteville, it was a brand new Hilton, they opened 30 days early to accommodate them, with everybody knowing, well, there's going to be some, sheetrock work that still needs to be done, et cetera. But everybody bent over backward to help them. They had full access. Everybody had a super good time. And now Northwest Arkansas wanted to have their own film commission. I said, well, that's certainly, there are other states that have cities that have, New York State has a film commission and so does New York City. So you guys want one, great. 3 days later, they called me back and said, okay, we have 1,200 members. Excuse me. We have 1,200 members in our film commission. And we're all going to LA next year to throw a party for all the blue and the gray people. Well, gee, it was a huge cast, as you might understand, with all the extras. Every dry cleaner for 50 miles around was operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, cleaning mud off of uniforms and getting hundreds of extras to clean the draft. The greens people were going to the nurseries, buying everything, put them in a scene, the horses run through it. They called the nursery and said, "Would you like your stuff back?" "Oh, we don't buy used stuff." He said, "No, we've already used it. You can just have it back if you want to come pick it up." "Really?" Yeah, really. And of course, it was great for the crew just to get rid of this stuff. And the nursery's going, "Can't believe this, can't believe this." So everybody was all gung-ho to do it. And the success of that was what led to Arkansas in 1983. Blue and Gray was 81. In 83, in February of 83, it may have been late January, Arkansas passed the first motion picture incentive act in the country. And it was based on a simple principle that the Arkansas, as a state, was making 5.1 cents per dollar on production expenses. So the only thing was, we didn't have much, but they wanted more, having had a taste of that blue and the gray stuff. They wanted
How
more.
do you know that number, by the way? You said 5.1 cents. Like is there a study that gets commissioned? Like, how does that work?
That was part of the knowledge of working for the Industrial Development Commission and all of their research people, plus the state's leading economist, Dr. Charles Venus. What's the gamble here? We're not making any money on taxes. So if the state gives them a nickel on every dollar they spend, that's a big deal to the bottom line razor edge folks in the production business. Who cares what the producer or director thinks? The guy who gives the green light loves to hear what the director would like to do for a location. On the other hand, if he says, "Well, you can shoot it in Arkansas and I take a nickel off the top," that was big news. It ended up being the start of that, ended up with a lot of other states following. And the MPAA eventually said that the introduction of motion picture incentives to the industry was a huge source of revenue and opened up great opportunities for local talent to get jobs and explore different creative avenues and opportunities and locations. And so it went over really well, but although it took 8 years maybe 7, before Louisiana copied us and did that. And then it started going crazy. And then Georgia, and, of course, now Georgia's losing it to Europe and Australia. And
well, productions will always follow the money. That's what I've learned through which was the whole purpose, it sounds like, of starting the incentive at the beginning.
Absolutely. Well, I literally heard that they had passed it. I was at a film symposium, which is what they call the gathering of the film commissioners yearly from all over the world. And one of the speakers was a wonderful guy named Ronald L. Schwery, Academy Award winner. And his new project was going to be a soldier story. So he was telling about a soldier story. Norman Jewison's going to direct, and this new kid, Denzel Washington's going to be a big hit. And Adolph Caesar, the Tony Award-winning actor from Play, was doing it. Jewison was directing and all of that. So if any state out there, he was speaking to the whole group, had military bases that might be accessed, please see him afterwards and send pictures and all that. Well, right in the middle of his spiel, I got a page, and I went out in the hallway, and the office told me that the nickel rebate had passed. The Arkansas Motion Picture Incentive Act of 1983. So it has passed. I said, "Can I tell everybody?" He said, "Absolutely." So I went back into the room and had literally what I recall as kind of being an Arnold Horshack moment. Ooh, 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 hey, ooh, ooh. Me. He said, yes. I said, "I'm Joe Glass, and I'm from Arkansas. And I'd like to tell you I've got 3 military bases that might work for you. But more importantly, for every dollar you spend in Arkansas, the state will give you a nickel back." And the whole room's head snapped around and looked at me like, "Are you crazy?" And he said, "Now, where are you from?" I said, "Arkansas." He said, see me after the meeting." When I did, and we ended up getting that in here because of that nickel rebate. It was Ron Schwery was absolutely awesome. So was Norman Jewison, but the real star behind the scenes was a fellow by the name of Gerald R. Molen, Molen. He was the unit production manager, ex-Teamster, captain, etc. But he ran that production office. What a kind, knowledgeable gentleman. He later went on to work for Spielberg and do The Color Purple, Schindler's List. He picked up the Academy Awards as the producer on those. But a really, really class guy who really ran a first-class ship to set an example. If you were in that office and saw how it ran, you knew how you ought to do it. You knew how you needed to treat people. You knew everything about it. It was absolutely first class to the tip top. And the home of my wife's first, she wasn't my wife then, but her first production job. And she got to drive Jewison around. After driving all the crew heads around here in pre-production, when it got to the set and Jewison rolled up the first day, and he looked at Tammy and said, "So she's a Teamster too?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Have her pick me up in the morning instead of that guy. No offense to him, but I'd much rather look at her every morning. I sent you a picture of her, I think."
Yeah.
That was her. So she loved that, but she got in and out of the production office, and Jerry Molen and his wife Pat, super people. Just the whole crew was just first class. Denzel was a gentleman, and just a bunch of fun guys. Just a bunch of fun people that helped to do that, and the first production company to ever get an incentive check from anybody in the country.
Wow.
And
it had already been, there were incentives in Canada, right? I want to say like British Columbia had probably already passed one at that point.
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure we weren't the first to have it. We were definitely the first in this country by many years.
In the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you were at that symposium. You get to walk in and be like, by the way,
yes,
you get a nickel back, which, I mean, it was totally foreign, right? I mean, unless there were like the foreign incentives already that were kind of chasing that. It's a really brilliant strategy.
They had it was completely off the wall for everybody in that room. And, it was just completely off the wall. How did you get that done? And of course, I'd been working on it for 2 years since the Blue and the Gray, looking for a way to do it. And like you said, follow the money. It's the economy, stupid. How many different ways can you say it? That, if that would cut to the deal, and then they would be interested in what we had to offer. But you wanted that bottom line guy to get his attention. Because his fun was heavy, some director likes this, producer thinks it's better here, and everything. Okay, so we can shoot it in here for so much, but if we shoot it over here for a little less. The really neat thing about it, Carl, was not only the nickel, but when they took a time to look at us, the rooms that would cost them $120 or $140 somewhere else, I could get it for them for $75 or $80. And our people would be thrilled. You're going to have, 200 people for 6 weeks? Where do I sign up? Because the restaurants, the bars, whatever hotel they landed in, you tell them, hey, as long as you're making money on the rooms, great. Your restaurant and bar business is getting ready to go through the roof, pal, because once the crew and the cast start hanging out here, the locals are going to be piling in here before and after and forever. And, to a person, they would all come back and thank me, and let's comp you a room, Mr. Glass. We need you handy. Because I said, well, I can't be here all the time because I don't have it in my budget and I can't afford to stay here, even at your bargain rates. Oh, no, your room is free. Well, I had to get permission for that. They couldn't just accept it.
Because you work for the government, essentially.
Yeah, they were happy.
Yeah.
asleep in my car. Oh, that was the funny, and I forgot to tell you this one at the big final meeting on the blue and the gray, and when the big meeting, it was at Mary Maestry's restaurant in Tawny Town, just outside of Fayetteville, and they had the downstairs room with the private and all the killer stuff. It's an impressive meal, but at the end of the deal, one of the producers for Columbia stood up and said, and one other thing here, Arkansas, we all appreciate Mr. Glass riding around in his Volkswagen, but we really need a full-size car with a V8 engine, if you wouldn't mind. And they said, oh, not a problem. Not, of course, I've been wanting one for 2 years, but that didn't do any good. But when they said that was necessary, the next morning, parked outside the hotel, was an unmarked state troopers car, complete with a portable blue light, state police radios, and a telephone in it. You know, big long antenna, all bent over and hooked down, unmarked, and all that stuff. They said, listen, this is going to work out as well for us as it does you, because we hear one of your big needs is closing roads and controlling traffic. I said, yes. He said, well, this way, when you have our radios and everything, we'll only have to send one car because you can be at the other end, right? I said, absolutely. That car can be wherever you need it to be, as long as I can drive it around. So needless to say, that was in the days before cell phones. And if you want to be popular on a film set with a whole bunch of big shot honky tonks that need to stay in touch with New York and LA, and you have the only phone for miles around, they were very, very glad to see me. Of course, that meant in order to be of maximum effectiveness for them, if they're going to shoot at sunrise and sunset, which the big boys always do, the magic moments, to shoot that sunrise, you just pretty well have to get there in the dark to be ready for it. Not a take two option. So first one to the set, last one to the leave. If it was in Arkansas, it was my set, so I was responsible. So all those years, that's just whatever the show was, that's where I needed to be. And
that was your life. Your life was the show, essentially, right? Whatever hours.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. There wasn't any time off. There just wasn't a good time. People that are getting ready to go into production, they don't give a flying flip if your office hours are 8 to 4:30. Or if it's Friday or Monday or anything, if they're getting ready to shoot, they can either get a hold of you or they can't. That was right in the instruction book they provided. We had to pay $50,000 for it, but we paid $50,000 for a survey done of 100 top decision makers in LA, what they wanted from their film commission. You had to know the lingo. You had to know the lingo. You had to be available. That was real important. You know, if they can't reach you, next. You know, so it was like pre-cell phone days, but I had a pager 24/7. They rang my pager. They got a call back as quick as I could provide one, but always the same day. But that was just part of the that was part of what you had to do. You had to know the lingo. You had to be honest with them. Don't send them a picture of the ideal location and don't show them the fact that it's sitting next to a burnt down factory or the railroad tracks are right across the street. You had to show them everything, because the last thing they wanted to do is come all the way to nowhere, Arkansas, and you had disguised the problem with the location. That did not win you any friends. So shooting complete circles, that was important to do.
And that brings me to when I initially called the Arkansas Film Commission in 2001. Right. I mean, it was probably, I don't know, June or July is my guess, is when I maybe first reached out. And I remember you being exceptionally responsive. So to your point, and you know, that was happening now in 2001. But also I got photographs. I think at that point, I think you could email photographs. And I probably would have looked at some that had been emailed. Right. You know, or maybe there was a website that had them on. I can't remember specifically how I would have known, but I remember you saying, "Come here, I will tour you around, and I will set it all up for you.
Yes.
You literally, you paved the way. I mean, I remember you picking me up at my hotel, at the airport, and driving to Eureka Springs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, where it was like an Oldsmobile car. I can't remember what kind of car that was.
That was it was a Dodge.
Dodge. Yeah.
Yeah. It was that same Dodge.
Well, so that's amazing, right? But that was full service. You essentially really just brought me there, and I mean, we don't have a ton more time right now to be able to delve into all the real crazy stories, but I just remember, like, was it Kingston? It was Kingston, Arkansas. It was the site of that Whitewater Bank loan thing for the Clintons, right? And that bank, the president of that bank, Mr. Bunch, was essentially like de facto mayor of the town, something to that effect. Where
yes.
Like, he had a lot of pull, right? I will never forget going there that morning, and him walking out of that bank with the door wide open, not a single other person in there. And I was like, don't you need to close the door, like, as we were walking out? He's like, no, but my colleague will be back in 5 minutes. It's fine. And I was like, we're the bank.
Welcome to Arkansas, man. Hey, listen, we were delighted that, we were delighted you'd take the time to come. A lot of people would put you through a lot of hoops and telling you they're going to come and everything, and then not show up or decide something and didn't tell you about it, just ghosted you. But you were professional and interested, and we always just try to take people and treat them like we'd like to be treated. If I was the guy and I didn't know anything or anybody, what would I want to see if I was here? Certainly Eureka is unique, and Little Kingston, unique as well. Just and not that far from each other. I mean, an hour and a half or so, but still, in the same quarter of the state. It was good. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. It was a treat and an opportunity. We were hoping to land your show. I would have been great.
I was convinced that was the town. Once you showed me Kingston, and the fact that it was close to Eureka Springs, that had like A-list accommodations essentially for our crew. Right. We needed somewhere for people to stay that was relatively close. We needed to be remote enough and separate that for security reasons, and keep the path separate. That was the whole point. It's like, put them in a rural setting. And I was like, oh, here's a place that's you can get to, that has accommodations, that has food, all the things that you were saying economically, kind of that were benefiting from production. I knew when I was location scouting that place, I was like, of all the other places I had seen already, I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
Oh, cool. Way cool. And that was before we landed The Simple Life.
That's right. It would have been well before. Yeah, Simple Life wouldn't come out, I think, for another couple of years at least.
Yeah, exactly. But the experience of trying to prep for you and your show was very helpful in trying to prep and eventually winning the Simple Life deal. That little rascal was worth over $40 million to the state of Arkansas in publicity. We had one of our leading large advertising agencies, Cranford Johnson, put somebody on it at their nickel, not ours, and said, wow, we just can't believe all the mentions. Nobody knew Arkansas had a wine country. This is really valuable, Joe. Goody. So anyway, it was, but hosting you was good exercise for trying to host a TV series,
Absolutely. Well, and that was nascent reality TV, right? So it's sort of really the beginnings of reality. But I actually remember being quite surprised at what like Eureka Springs offered and how I was treated in Arkansas. Because I would say there was probably this pervasive thought, or Arkansas, why would you want to go there, right? That was sort of the idea. But for me, actually being on the ground there, being able to see it, being able to meet everybody, forget the September 11th of it all. That added a whole different experience and layer. I'm talking about even before that, it changed my mind about that place.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it really, for whatever reason, I don't know, why that was the pervasive thought. This sort of idea of like, oh, I don't think of Arkansas as this real cosmopolitan place or place that has culture and things. It just I'd never been exposed to that.
No, well, Carl, I hadn't either. IBM, I've been moved. They moved me here over my objections. And once I had the experience you did of getting in and meeting the people, seeing the diversity and everything, I couldn't help but fall in love with the place. Arkansas, you run deep in me. It's a great song. It's just a unique place, unique opportunity. I'm so grateful to the people who made it possible, and there were tons of people who made it possible, and still check on me and still help with things. And I'm just eternally grateful to Arkansas, land of opportunity, which has now been changed to the natural state. So I'm good either way. It's been a blessing.
We only have a couple minutes left, but I just kind of wanted to give you an opportunity if there was anything that you sort of give as like maybe advice to young filmmakers, to people looking for locations, even from the idea of being a film commissioner. Like what would you say to people trying to make content today?
Well, it's funny you should say that. I was watching Billy Bob Thornton on TV this morning and last night. He's promoting his new Taylor Sheridan show, Landman, and with a new look for Billy and everything. And he was talking about his mentor, Robert Duvall. Well, on Sling Blade, I worked as a PA while I was not at the film office. And my job was, we didn't have a transportation department. So when Billy's friends like Robert Duvall came in, my job was to take care of them, period. Treat them just like I would you. Pick them up in the morning, take them everywhere, get everything you can for, do whatever, be a personal slave. And I posed a similar question to Duvall about that. He said, well, what are the young people trying to make films tell you of why they're not doing them? Well, it's very hard. Some of them, I said, just the other day, I was listening to a young trio of young filmmakers talking about how hard it is that they've been working on it for over 2 years and still haven't made any progress. He said, well, here's my advice for the young filmmakers in Arkansas. He said, I had a film I wanted to make my whole life. It was called The Apostle. He said, I worked on it for 10 years before I got it done. He said, 10 years. So tell them 2 years is nothing. 10 years. And let me tell you something else. I'm Robert Duvall, and it took me 10 years. So you guys telling me how hard you worked for 2, put your nose back to the grindstone, keep digging deeper, and don't quit. All right, that's about it. You're not beat until you quit. If you don't quit, you're not beat. And there are a lot of stories out there that take that if it's in your heart. The other thing he said was, if you had all the greatest craftsmen in the world and the most beautiful location in the world to build the perfect house, and everybody showed up, you got all these fine materials and craftsmen all gathered together, and he said, okay, let's build a really neat house. And nobody has a detailed plan. What are these people going to do? He said, you need a shot list. You need a timed shot list. You need to be able to tell me in every one of those shots, what's in the foreground, what's in the midground, what's in the background, and where are you going to be focusing, front, middle, back. You've got to create quality content. You got to do it like the big boys do. And believe me, they don't show up and go, what do you think we should do first? They already know everything they need to do. Not that it doesn't change as you go along, but you need to have at least a good, well thought out plan. And if you don't have that, you're not ready to shoot. More time in pre-production cures a lot of things. More time, pre-production. Get it figured out first. Don't show up on the set where it's real expensive and wondering what to do. Just take the time to do the work.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you essentially based your entire career on supporting filmmakers. Either, you're working on a production, but even more so bringing not just that level of expertise and support that I know I felt when I came to the state, that I'm certain all these other filmmakers and crews also felt, but also the state itself. It sounds like there's a lot of gratitude. You did a lot of help, for the state and the people of Arkansas itself, and how amazing that can be, and how you can use your power, right, and ability and relationships that you had garnered, even from your IBM days, to really play both sides. It's really amazing. You were able to help the filmmakers. You were able to help the state. It benefited everybody.
Absolutely. It was a wonderful win-win. It was great to feel like you had been helpful to the production and they valued you, and they valued you and stayed in touch. That was precious to be able to work with guys like Paul Freeman and David Wolper through the years. Harry Thomason. Harry was. When I came back here to get in the film business, I was the only one in the state, and then somebody said, "No, there's a coach out at McClellan High, football coach. He's in the movie. He's getting in the movie business too." But and y'all probably, you being West Coast and all that, y'all won't get along. Well, it was Harry Thomason, and Harry and I got along great, and made our first movie together. I produced and Harry directed. And then later on, Harry's dream was to make it and go to Hollywood and make it in Evening Shade, Designing Women, Fall Guy, Women of the House. He did a wonderful things. And he also produced The Blue and the Gray, which was a good thing for him and me both, because he helped with the inside info. And I told them way up front, guys, we're getting a lot of help from everybody, but if you send me a snooty New York, LA, I'm better than you type, all of this help, as quickly as they got here, it'll go away and he won't be getting back. So you better find somebody who can get along with folks and don't play the hotshot LA, beret scene for me on all of that. So they hired Harry. He was doing the Fall Guy at the time. They said, how about Harry? Well, I said, I produced the first film he ever directed. Rod Serling.
Built-in relationship. Yeah.
Amazing.
Good. Yeah,
Amazing.
It is good. Oh, get this too. Here's a coincidence. There was a fellow around by the name of Charles B. Pierce, did a film called Legend of Boggy Creek. It was a four-wall deal that he made a lot of money on. Charlie went on to do some other things, including writing a screenplay for Mr. Eastwood, where you might remember the line, "Go ahead, make my day." That was Charles B. Pierce's line. And Charlie be the first one to tell you, said, I didn't make that up. That's what my dad would tell me on Saturday morning. Charlie, you got that lawn mowed yet? Yeah? Go ahead, boy. Make my day. So that's where that line came from, Charlie's dad. And Charlie and Harry Thomason were next door neighbors in Little Hampton, Arkansas, with a town with, one stop sign.
Wow.
How
culture
that,
exploding. It's all culture exploding out of there. That's amazing. That's amazing. Absolutely. Joe, thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. It was really awesome getting a chance to see you and hear your stories, and I'm excited to share this with everybody.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate you too, Carl. You're a good man, and thanks for staying in touch. It means a lot.
Same. And see, we're not talking on September 11th, which is, usually the time to do it. But I'm glad we got a chance to sit down today, and I got to learn more about your career and history and how important it all is, to kind of making it all function. Something that a lot of people and younger filmmakers don't even realize, or content creators.
We're here. If you come into Arkansas, you need help, I'm still available. We're still doing. I'm retired, but I still talk to a lot of folks on the phone, and glad to do it too.
Awesome. All right, I'm just going to take you off stage here and close out here. Hang tight for a second. I just want to thank our viewers. Thank you so much for watching another episode of Behind the Lens. I'm your host, Carl Hansen, and hope to see you next time. Thanks so much.